Look at these boys all snuggled up together. Actually, I lied. That's a boy and a girl. Look at those babies snuggled up together. That's brother, sister. I don't know why I thought they were my two boys. Probably because I'm focused on my two boys that are going home. Hi, JC. You gonna be up in my grill? So hey guys, welcome back. I'm Pam. This is Racing for Home Farm, where the animals rule the schedule and I just try and keep up. These are miniature silky fainting goats, and nothing here is scripted. Nothing is planned. Everything is pretty much what we see is what we get. Snuggles. Oh, they're all coming in for their snuggles. And, you know, the animals are cute, so it works. Now, just because I say nothing here is planned or scripted, I mean it, but I do actually have thoughts every once in a while. This little head of mine actually gets filled with thoughts sometimes. And sometimes I get questions on my videos, and I like to try and answer them. I always answer them in the comments, absolutely. If you are commenting on my videos, you know that I respond to every comment that happens. If they get, if we get into a debate in the comments, I may not respond to every, back and forth. But every initial comment I respond to, I read them all. I promise you that. And I read them all on every social media that you're looking at it. So whether you're watching on YouTube, Nextdoor, Blue Sky, X, Facebook, Instagram, doesn't matter. Oh, and Ravelry too. I am reading comments. I'm responding to comments. I hear you. I see you. So sometimes I get some questions. And one of the questions I got recently, like within the last 24 hours, was about Sock Monkey, who just walked into the stall now that I want to talk about her. So her babies went home and she moved into the dry doe pasture. I don't really normally call it that, but for lack of a better term, that's what we're calling it, right? Those are where the does with no babies are for the moment, because they don't need to be in the baby pasture. I shouldn't say for the moment. That's their normal permanent pasture. It's the big, wide pasture that goes all the way down to the woods. So there she is. So somebody asked me, how is Sock Monkey doing without her babies? And the answer is, she kind of could care less. Some of the mamas, when the babies go home, hi Snuggie, I know, they are, they do, they'll call for the babies for a few hours. They'll try and get an answer. And then when they don't get an answer after, let's call it 5 or 6 hours, and no, they're not calling consistently, they're not screaming, but they will periodically call for their babies. And when they don't get an answer after a few hours, they sort of stop. The reason that this transition is fairly easy is because we do not send babies home until they're fully weaned. So mom is kind of done with the babies, right? They're only comfort nursing. She's not really feeding them. If they don't come to her and try and nurse, she won't actively engage with them. They don't protect them quite as much. I mean, this is Persephone. These are Persephone's boys here, the two standing up. She's not interested in them at all at the moment. Certainly if they ran up to her, she would allow them to be next to her, and she might not, push them away. But they're weaned. They're grown, right? If this were the wild, they'd be on their own for the rest, right, to survive. And as boys, they'd be kicked out of probably their tribe, their herd, right, to go forge their own way. So the mamas do transition pretty easily back into the herd. The herd is where they know. That's where they live, right? They live over on in the next stall with the next pasture, the much bigger pasture, with the other does that are there already. That's their family. That's their herd. That's their tribe. So they don't get too upset when their babies go home. I do have a few mamas that get a little bit more upset than others. You're too close. I have to zoom out. I'm going to miss these boys. They are so snuggly. At any rate, I do have a couple of mamas that are a little bit more attached to their kids, but they also recover very quickly, right? They don't mope around. They don't get depressed. They're not searching for babies. In fact, I showed you on the first video, and that was only like 12 hours later. Sock Monkey's head was deep in the fresh grass. She was more interested in grazing and foraging than she was in looking for babies. She will periodically, she's still calling. She's a first-time freshener, so this was her first round of babies. So, she is periodically sort of calling for them, but it's like, once every couple hours she'll holler for them, and then they don't answer, and she goes back to grazing. She's not really upset. They don't get depressed. If they did, we would change processes, right? If there were something that was detrimental to the health and well-being of my does, we wouldn't do it. It's one of many reasons that I don't do bottle babies if I can avoid it. I don't believe in pulling babies from their mom right at birth, which is really how you make bottle babies. I understand why people do it, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It is an opinion of mine, and I don't prefer it, or it's a preference of mine, and I don't do it. Right? Unless it's medically necessary. I have done it for medical reasons, or when, a baby's been rejected. Hi, buddy. You're just going to climb right on up there, aren't you? You want your time on camera? So, I don't pull babies unless it's medically necessary. Babies are raised by their moms, and as you can see, that doesn't impact their ability to be friendly. That's a pee stance. It's always nice to catch them when they stand still. When the boys are peeing, it's a great way to get a look at them. So, bottle baby preferences. This is, again, a difference between how I run my herd. Hi, girlfriend. She's so pretty, isn't she? And how other herds are managed. I run an extremely small herd, like an unheard of small herd, no pun intended. I have, 11 total goats once the babies go home, 12 now if we count Miss Ladybug. And that's all I need, right? However, having that few goats also means that I'm not earning money on the farm, right? Yes, the farm is a business. Yes, it's a business model, but you need to be selling a lot of baby goats in order to make this a profitable mission. And even then, profitable is questionable because if you have one vet visit, it can wipe everything out. But a lot of folks, a lot of breeders, honestly have upwards of 40 and more. I know breeders, that have hundreds of goats. That is more of a commercial operation. In a situation like that, you can't do what I do. You can't sit here and spend time with each one of your babies and make them socialized, right? And get them used to humans and talking and cameras and motion and dogs and all the things. Because I'm capable and have the time to do that with my smaller herd, look at these two. That was the most gentle little push around I've ever seen. I have the ability to make our goats, or not make, but to ensure that our baby goats are as friendly as bottle babies. But when you have a larger operation, the only way to make that happen realistically is to pull them from their parents, from their moms right away, make them a bottle baby, and raise them by humans. Then, of course, they're attached to humans, just like Ladybug, right? She's in my grill 24/7 because she thinks I'm mom. She thinks any human is mom, honestly. It's not just me. Whereas the other babies here, and, they just sort of wandered off. Look at them both drinking at the same time, two little tushes at the water bucket. They come to me naturally. They come to me normally, but they're not necessarily devoted to me as their mom. They're just human friendly because I've been working with them, you know, and holding them and touching them and talking to them since they were born. And that's why it works for me. And that's why I don't do bottle babies. It's one of the reasons. The other reason is, oh my gosh, bottle babies are hard work. And why sign myself up for that if I don't have to? But it is something that is a distinct choice. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. I have bottle babies on the farm. JC actually is a bottle baby because she was medically pulled. Obviously, well, I say obviously, if you've been following, you know that Ladybug is a bottle baby because her breeder bottle raised. Who else is a bottle baby? Phineas, one of my bucks, is a bottle baby. So I have them. They're not my favorite as adults because they're so, you know, you see JC is always up in my armpit, right? She's always stuffing her head against me. She's always right there underfoot. I love it. I have a small herd. That's okay. You have a nice big herd and you have 15 goats underfoot. It starts to become a problem. So I figured I would give a little chat about that and talk about really how the moms transition. I mean, you can see Sock Monkey. I know I got totally off tangent on the whole bottle baby thing, but Sock Monkey's out here now. She's not calling for babies. She's not looking for babies. She's head down in the grass, enjoying spring growth. We haven't mowed the pasture yet, so she's just loving every minute of it. She's not concerned in the least. And that is how our moms transition. They do not go through any stress. The biggest challenge with them is their udder needs to dry up, right? So essentially their milk production needs to stop. They're not dairy goats, so they don't produce giant amounts of milk. They don't have giant udders. But it can be uncomfortable for them as there's nobody relieving the pressure anymore. There's no more nursing. But most of them, because we wait until the babies are fully weaned, have really reduced the amount of milk they're producing already because they're not feeding their babies in the same, you know, way. They're not really feeding their babies for nutrition. They're feeding their babies for comfort. And they're not feeding their babies every hour. They're feeding their babies once or twice a day, right? So their milk production has slowed already. So that transition is, again, usually pretty uneventful. I do keep an eye on it, though, to make sure that they do dry up and that their udders are healthy and that they don't have, you know, they don't get mastitis or anything. So we do keep an eye on that. We also want to make sure that all of their mammary system stays in pristine condition because otherwise they won't be able to nurse babies next year. And, you know, if you haven't seen Fanta all de-cashmered, she no longer looks like a sheep. She looks like a goat again. She does not have long hair like the rest of the gang. She never got her hair in for whatever reason. She's got what we call a skirt, right? She's got hair hanging off the bottom of her. But she never got her coat in the way she should have based on her genetics. And that doesn't matter because we love her just as she is. But she no longer looks like a sheep with all that cashmere hanging off of her. Last but not least, we'll check in with Penny, who's trying to graze from the goat pasture because, you know, the grass is always greener. Olive, who has passed out in the sun. And Miles, who is snoodling a little bit, probably looking for bugs and grubs. And that's about the extent of what's happening here at the farm today. As always, Ladybug is right here with me. As I walk back up, she'll follow. And yeah, that's about it for today. So until next time, I got work to do. Bye for now.